Okay. It's happening. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. It's chop salad time with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. Let's chop some salad. But first, a letter from the prophet David Eagleman from the book of Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. We start off every episode now with a reading from this book. Very, very short stories about what happens possibly after you die, if it's not total nothingness. This one is called Giantess. The afterlife is all about softness. You find yourself in a great padded compound. Everything appears designed for quietness and comfort. Your feet fall silently on the cushioned floor, the walls are pillowed. Echoes are dampened by foam ceiling tiles. A hard surface is impossible to find. Feathers pad everything. When you enter the grand hall, the first thing you notice is a sizable and princely man. He looks just as you might expect a god to appear, except that he's noticeably skittish and strained with worry around the eyes. He'll probably be explaining that he's greatly disturbed by the nuclear arms proliferation on Earth. He says that he often awakens in a cold sweat with the sounds of colossal blasts hammering into his ears. To be clear, he says to you, I am not your god. Instead, you and I are galactic neighbors. I am from a planet associated with the star you call Turzan 4, so we're all in the same mess. What mess, you ask? Please don't talk so loudly, he softly admonishes. For a long time, we've been studying our neighbors, you Earthlings and 37 other planets besides. We've developed highly accurate systems of equations to predict the future growth and social directions of your planets. Here he fixes your eyes. It turns out that you Earthlings are among the least tranquil and content. Our predictions indicate that your weapons of war will grow increasingly loud. Your space exploration programs will produce thousands of noisy vessels that'll thunder throughout the heavens with their deafening rocket propulsion. You Earthlings are like your explorer Cortez, standing atop a mountain peak and preparing to perturb every beach at all the lapping fringes of the Pacific. We're in a mess of expansionism, you manage? That's not the mess, he hisses. Allow me to illustrate the larger picture. You and I, our planets, our galaxy, we're part of what you should think of as an immeasurable living mass. You might call it a giantess, but summarizing the concept in a word might give you the illusion that you can have a hint of a notion at her enormity. To give you a sense of scale, you are the size of an atom for her. Your Earth, sprouting with its untold layers of furiously fecund species, your Earth is tantamount to a single protein in the shadowy depths of a single one of her cells. Our Milky Way consists of a single cell, but a small one. She consists of hundreds of billions of such cells. For millions of years, my people had no notion of her, just as a flatworm is unlikely to discover that the planet is round. A colony of bacteria will never know the walls of the flask. A single cell in your hand will not know it's contributing to a concerto on the piano. But with advancing philosophy and technology, we came to appreciate our situation. Then, a few millennia ago, it was theorized that we might be able to communicate with her. It was proposed that we might decipher her structure, deploy signals, influence her behavior in the manner that infinitesimal molecules, hormones, alcohols, narcotics influence a creature like you. So we organized and educated ourselves. Instead of fretting through the doomed, ignoble cycles of local politics, we dedicated our economy and sciences toward understanding the biochemistry of universal scales. We methodically mapped out the signaling cascades and stellar anatomy of her nervous system, and at last discovered how to transmit a signal to her consciousness. We sent a sharply defined sequence of electromagnetic pulses, which interacted with local magnetospheres, which influenced asteroid orbits, which nudged planets closer and farther from stars, which dictated the fate of life forms, which changed the gases in the atmospheres, which bent the path of light signals, all in complex interacting cascades we'd worked out. Our calculations told us it took a few hundred years for the transmission to arrive at her consciousness. At the time of the arrival, I was sad to be traveling away from the planet while everyone was so excited to see what would happen. His face twitches with painful trickles of reminiscence. But no one would have guessed what would have happened next. A great sheet of meteors rained down. Incendiary hydrogen clouds crushed in. And these were followed by a multitude of black holes that mercilessly swallowed up the flying chunks and dust in the last light of remembrance. No one survived. In all probability, this was neutral to her. It might have been an immune system response, or she might have been scratching an itch or sneezing or getting a biopsy. So we discovered that we can communicate with her, but we cannot communicate meaningfully. We are of insufficient size. What can we say to her? What question could we ask? How could she communicate her answer back to us? Perhaps that was her attempt to answer. What could you ask her to do that would have any relevance to your life? And if she told you what was of importance to her, could you understand her answer? Do you think it would have any meaning at all if you displayed one of your Shakespearean plays to a bacterium? Of course not. Meaning varies with spatial scale. So we've concluded that communicating with her is not impossible, but it's pointless. And that's why we're now hunkered down silently on the surface of this noiseless planet, whispering through a slow orbit, trying not to draw attention to ourselves. A reading from the prophet David Eagleman from the book of Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. I love this book. A little change for salad time. I am now communicating through Facebook Live on my Chion Wolf Productions page and on YouTube Live, youtube.com/ChionWolf. So we'll see how that goes. Let's get to the chopping. You'll notice I've got iceberg lettuce and red leaf lettuce just to mix things up. Yesterday, I forgot last week that I was going to have a day out of work because I was going to be taping at WTNH in New Haven. So I made an extra salad last week. So I'm making one fewer salad for myself this week. Emily is going for 2 salads this week. We have our hard-boiled, or if I'm lucky, soft-boiled eggs right behind us. While I am chopping away, I would love for you to tell me what you thought of that installment of Some. If God, if there is such a thing, if God is so big, that we are but molecules, traces of hormones to it. I mean, my understanding when people talk about God is the bigness of God, right? That seems to be a theme. So if God is so big, why or how would God communicate with us? And how would we communicate with God? And I do feel like our view of God is this very intimate thing, as if we were created specifically by this God. Oh, Mia, the sum reading this for today was essentially, we tried to communicate with God, but God is so big that we're like a single atom within a single cell. And if we tried to communicate with God, it probably wouldn't make any sense. And even if we could communicate with God, God probably, whatever message God had, couldn't possibly get back down to us. Because it's like us trying to communicate into a bacterium, which I thought was a great idea. Yeah. So a change today. We've got Facebook Live on the phone. And we've got...
Carpenter says made it right at the beginning today.
Oh, yeah!
It's like a nice salad foundation for my week.
Yes.
Stephanie Marco says happy 40th chop salad time.
Thank you. Happy 40th chop salad time to you. I don't know if we'll ever figure out this God thing. Plus, if we did, well, we won't. So, we finally got to check out the new Metro Beast in Simsbury, Chris Prosperi's restaurant, and we were talking about chop salad time. And he said, you know what? For your 50th, I'm going to come. I'm going to bring a bunch of ingredients. So mark your calendars for whenever the 50th chopped salad time will be. I know we could figure that out, but just in case there's a weekend we're away. As we get closer to the 50th, keep in mind that Chris Prosperi, the Chris Prosperi, Chef Chris Prosperi, will be our very special guest for the 50th. Can't believe there's 50 of these. I mean, I should believe it because I'm just making salad. We've rearranged our home. We've only been here since late August, but Emily has got a great eye for rearranging, and now the whole place feels like a brand new house. And that's pretty cool. We are 1 week away, well, less than a week away from the next Asking for a Friend with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. And I'll tell you, you'll be the first to know. I haven't even emailed my panelists yet. One of the problems that we want to talk about is I can only make art when I'm miserable. Our complainant says that they only write music and songs when they're sad. And it's cathartic and exhilarating to perform these songs in front of an audience. It's rewarding. However, the longer they play these songs, the more they stay stuck in their problem that they wrote the song about in the first place. But when they stop and they're happy, they don't write any songs. And then they're sad because they're not writing any songs. So it's this sort of mad loop. So I know that some people write music and make art when they're happy. You can immediately think of plenty of happy songs, right? But what if that's not how you express yourself when you're happy? Is it worth it to stop writing music? It's a twisted problem. So I look forward to hearing what our panelists will say. My panelists get an email the weekend before the show. They have 1 week to consider what they think. There's one round called the Ponder Round. And that ponderance, so there's no wrong answers for that one. I mean, technically, there's really no wrong answers for any of this, but the question for this month's Ponder Round is, what would be the perfect apocalypse? I'll tell you what mine would be. And I'm going to talk about this in the show, too. When the Large Hadron Collider was about to be turned on, there were, much like, Y2K, when the year 2000 came around, people thought that a lot of the computers that had been built up to this point wouldn't be able to handle the shift from 1990 or 1980, 1970 into the 2000s, and that there would be a huge glitch in all these systems and they would break down, et cetera, big problems. Planes would crash, et cetera. Obviously nothing happened, but there was a lot of excitement about it. And the same with the Large Hadron Collider. People were worried that it would create a black hole and that would be the end of us. And I thought that would be perfect. That would be the perfect apocalypse because it's of our own making. It's instant, so we don't have to suffer. And it's kind of poetic. Like our advancements have swallowed us whole. And also not with a bang, but a whimper. Let's chop the salad. I'm excited to be on YouTube as well as Facebook. I'm trying this YouTube idea. I consulted with my friend Anthony Fantano. If you don't know who Anthony Fantano is, for some people, You would remember him because he had a show for 4 years on Connecticut Public Radio called The Needle Drop, and it was a music review show. And now he has, God, I should have looked this up before, like 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And he's really ridiculously successful. And he's been doing this a long time, and it's like all he does. He even tours around every now and then and talks about his like a live show. It's really cool to see what he's made of his interests and his brain and his art. He's not particularly flashy. His video editing is minimal but powerful. And it's just clearly like he's found something that's really perfect for him. So we were talking a while ago about how to grow the work I'm doing and where to put it. And YouTube seems like a good idea. I also have a lot of work on YouTube. A lot of my videos that you may have seen in passing or attached to an event, my animations, other things like that. So it'll maybe get some more people to see all the other work I've done, which is what I'm going for. Try to get the word out. I feel sometimes like I've got so much going on that it's easy to lose track. If I were not me, I would not possibly have a full grasp on all the stuff I'm doing. But the most important thing is that you want to. So I'm just going to try to keep getting better at all this stuff I'm doing so that you want to. Last night, speaking of getting better at stuff, doing more stuff, last night was the premiere release party for Connecticut Voice magazine, which is on the table. And I'll show it to you later. The good folks at Seasons Magazine have started a LGBTQIA mag, and they got a big panel of advisors and employed people who are writers and photographers who are also on that spectrum. And we have released it. It is official. It is out. If you want to get yours, go to ctvoicemag.com and you can get your free subscription. It's a quarterly. It's run by ads, which is why you don't have to pay for it, just like Seasons. And it's a beautiful magazine. It's helpful that they had it run by Seasons because Seasons has been around for a long time and have a great reputation. They know what they're doing. So it's nice to start strong with them. And of course, I'm particularly interested because they've hired me to do Connecticut Voice podcast with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. And it's been so much fun to do it. I have total creative control, so I get to choose who I get to talk to and what questions I get to ask. And the only frustrating thing is that it's monthly, which means only 12 people a year, more or less. So, trying to figure out, it's a weird balance of like, I want to talk to people about specifically the challenges and wonderfulness of being on this spectrum, but also your sexual orientation and gender identity, sometimes which overlap explicitly and sometimes don't. That's not everything you are. You have a lot more to offer than just that. So sometimes I'm going to be talking to people who are doing really cool things about the cool things they're doing, and they just happen to be on that spectrum. So as I figure it out, I hope you'll stick with me. I hope you'll listen to it and subscribe to it and share it. There's a lot of stories that I think really need to be told from the mouths of people going through these things. I think that's important to hear the voices. Connecticut Voice. So after I'm done chopping these, I'm going to check up on you, see how you're doing, if you have any questions, any confessions, any meanderings. If you figured out this whole God thing, let me know. I'll let everyone else know. Perhaps we could start a new world order of some sort. There will be capes, chalices. Because when you have capes and chalices, what could go wrong? Am I right? Today's It's Chop Salad Time with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. It's brought to you by the Peterson Family Foundation of Illinois, or as they call it, Illinois. I will not say that they are an Illinoisans, which apparently is like a local, I don't know. I'd never heard that before until Emily told me. They are also my Czars. That's CZAR. So thank you to the Peterson Family Foundation. This show is not brought to you by Trader Joe's onion salt. It was emotionally, but it's no longer. Thank you, Mio.
Judy Weatherby says, I find that I feel more creative with greater emotion. If I'm really down, I can sometimes write much better poetry. Peter Carpenter says, there's also Twitch. Everyone thinks it's all gamers streaming, but there are a lot of cooking, chatting streams.
Twitch. I've heard of that. Thank you.
Rob Lansley says, serious chop tool.
Chop, chop.
Chop, chop. Stephanie Margot Land says, fun topic. What's the date? We want to come.
Oh, this coming Saturday night at CT Improv's Underground Comedy Theater. You can find more information at ctimprov.com and on my Facebook page, facebook.com/asking for a friend with Chion Wolf.
She also says it's art therapy. I feel a release by creating no matter the mood. Judy Weatherby says it has always been my feeling that if he, she, it does exist, asking he, she, it to produce a parking space close to where I'm going or getting that promotion or et cetera, would be pointless. Even asking to be saved from a hurricane or a tornado would be pointless.
Agreed.
Rob Lansley likes the mic cord.
Thanks. It's a low budget. I'm starting a Patreon really soon so I can get real lav mics that are wireless.
And Patricia Bloom says, I am working.
All right, Patricia. Everybody's working for the weekend. Thank you, Mio.
Yeah, Mio.
This is Connecticut Voice Magazine. How cool. It's really beautiful. This guy is a famous dancer. And the photography is kick ass. And I'm Chion Wolf.
Wait, you gotta show your poster.
Oh, my poster! This is from the release party last night. Should I just have this with me the whole time I'm talking to you? So anyway, it's funny, the comment about asking God to be saved or spared from pain or destruction. A couple asking for a friends ago, the question was, is it okay to say that I'm blessed? And the hang up there was one panelist who was like, absolutely, like it, you're talking about your connection with your higher power, and if you feel fortunate, like there's no problem with that. But a lot of people, when they hear someone talking about feeling blessed, it's almost like a competitive thing. Like, haha, I'm blessed, you're not. When someone is spared, when their house is spared from a tornado, they say, I'm blessed. I was blessed. I did not lose my home in this tornado. Does that not imply that the other people who did lose their homes in the tornado were not blessed? Why would, if they're still blessed, then why are you using blessed as a choice of words? Is there a different word you're going for? Or do you really believe that you are blessed and they are not? And in that case, you're kind of a jerk. So therefore, are you really blessed because you're a jerk? And then there are people who are like, they get a Louis Vuitton bag and they're like, #blessed, living my best life. What a jackass thing to say. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a funny thing. Also, the idea of creating art, regardless of your emotional state, is a healthy thing to do. And that will be something that I'll bring up, so thank you, at the show, maybe as some sort of solution. if you're feeling like the only time you can create art is when you're really feeling bad, all right, well, have you tried creating art when you don't feel really bad? Have you tried enough? You know? It's like a muscle, right? When you're creating anything. You keep trying. Maybe the first 8 times you're like, this is not for me. Nope, nope. But the 9th time, you're like, oh, I'm getting somewhere. And it makes me think about like great artists who have made albums full of really happy songs and full of really, really sad, hard, pain-filled songs. So did they, and this is like before our modern day music era where, you know, you've got ghostwriters and, I mean, ghostwriters have existed, but I think that's an interesting question. And if you can create art when you are happy, will that affect the art you make when you're sad? I don't fucking know. But these are all really good questions. And then you think about the purpose of art. So what's wrong with only creating art when you're sad? It's serving a purpose. Like, you don't poop when you don't have anything to poop. You poop when you have to poop. You're not going to go try and poop when you don't have to poop. You'll hurt yourself. And then it brings up more questions about the history of, you know, at least well-known artists whose work is well known because they struggled so much, especially with mental illness. And here we are, you know, connecting with their work and applauding their work when really it came at the cost of a mental illness or even just pain. So here we are connecting. We're glad for the connection. But is it worth it? Or what does our applause or reverence, how does that translate when we know that it was at this person's cost? That they paid the price and we're enjoying the connection and the fruits of their own labor, fruits of their pain. I have a lot of pain right now, but it's good pain. It's good pain. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I lived in an era where there was less scientific proof of the world around us, not proof, but explanation about why things happen, such as crying when chopping onions, I would, for realsies, believe in a God or a higher power. Because what the hell? Of all reactions, this delicious vegetable makes human beings cry. Of all reactions. Yeah. I would believe in a higher power. Whatever made onions. It's shell those eggs time. Hold on. Woo! Then I'll check up on you. Ah, damn it. We're okay. All right. Okay. Stephanie Marco Lance. I believe in magic. That's what I say after living through getting hit by a car. There was some magic that day, and I certainly am grateful. That's interesting. Both of us. Stephanie was hit by a car while crossing the road with her family, which is a nightmare I cannot fathom for all involved. And I'm so glad you're so much better. I also got hit by a car a couple of years ago while riding my bike. I got plate and 8 screws in my collarbone. And I see where you're coming from about like there was magic that day in terms of you were spared death. That's magic. That's nice. That is very good, obviously. But at the same time, Stephanie, where was the magic in like you not getting hit in the first place? And the person who hit you, I can't imagine that felt good for them either. If I remember correctly, it was an older person. And that, I'm sure, was traumatic for them in their own way and for their family, knowing that they really seriously injured somebody. So I appreciate, like, the positivity that you're putting on that by saying there was magic. I'm assuming you're implying because you survived and it wasn't worse. But at the same time, like, it would have been nice if it didn't happen at all. Both could be true, that's for sure. Cindy says, for me, feeling blessed is the same as feeling grateful. It's personal, not competitive. And you put your finger on something too. We talked about, is it just the word? Because blessed is loaded. Blessed is tied to a religious feeling. I think most people would agree. And since words really matter and words are important, when you change it to, I'm grateful, then like, yeah, there's no competition. You're grateful. It has nothing to do with anybody else. But to use the word blessed, you know, like a priest blesses a baby. That's an elevation, right? That's like an act. But feeling grateful is a state of being that's not given to you by anybody other than yourself. And so then there's no competition. There's no, haha, I'm blessed and you're not. If you don't feel grateful, that's on you. But if you're not blessed, well, that's on more than one person. That's on the person and the God you're saying is capable of blessing. All right, this is working. Also, funny thing, for my asking for a friend Instagram, which is asking for a friend with Chion Wolf, I post all the calligraphed problems and some confessions from the show. At the end of every show, we read the confessions that people submit at the beginning. And they're all anonymous and fascinating. And one of them is, should we circumcise our baby boy? And it's funny because now there's like 50-something comments on it. And people are talking about, you know, people are taking it really far into other categories of control and religion and culture and gender and abuse. And it's funny because I think it's fascinating to see the conversation go from circumcision to topics that may seem, if my phone wasn't already being used for this, I'd read some to you. But it makes me, and I'm just happy that people are commenting. Like, I'm just happy people are asking for a friend with a Chion Wolf, even though they're fighting about it. Like, some people are getting really upset with each other on this thread. And as the creator of it, I'm just like, great, argue away. I'm glad you're paying attention to the work I'm doing, which makes me feel a little weird. And then makes me think about, what am I contributing to where the creators of it are just like, keep arguing. Go for it. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. You know what I mean? Hi, Mia. The next mouth off is April 12th. You are encouraged to put your name in the hat and your story in the hat. The theme is sibling rivalry. And the cool thing about the mouth off is your story can be completely about sibling rivalry, from its core to beginning to the middle, end, all of it. And your story could also like have just a moment when sibling rivalry is involved, and the rest has nothing to do with sibling rivalry. I like it open like that. So if you want to put your story summary into consideration, email mouthoffhartford@gmail.com. April 12th, we might see you on stage at the Mark Twain House and Museum. We sold out last month, so if you just want to go hear stories about sibling rivalry, get your tickets now. They're only $10. Super cheap. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, have you done your taxes yet? I'm seeing and hearing about people not getting back as much because some of the changes in tax laws meant that you had more in your paycheck throughout the year, like a little bit more, but you didn't really notice. And so when it came to tax time, you're used to getting a certain amount back. You get way less back, or you owe. I want to hear if you've done your taxes, how it went, if you noticed any change. So while I slice these eggs, let me know. I'll also check in on you in general. Hold on. Cindy says, wish any or all of your shows could come to Illinois. Sharon, widen the joy. I think we could do an Illinois version of Itch Top Salad Time with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. Peter Reed says, that tiger suit is about the coolest thing I've ever seen, by the way. Thank you. I agree. This was my first onesie, and I love tigers. When I was a goalie in soccer, I used to vividly imagine that I was a tiger, and I think it helped. Peter Carpenter, I find myself somewhere between agnostic and atheist. I can't quite claim to be atheist because while I feel there's no proof of God, I must also acknowledge that there is no proof there isn't. But proving a negative is impossible. There, I just did it for you, Peter. You're an atheist. You're welcome. All right. I can't wait to hear back from Stephanie, though. I'd like to hear what I might have missed from what she said. But it's interesting. So all right, so let's figure this out together on Salad Time. We'll make the headlines that we've figured out agnosticism versus atheism on this ridiculous salad making show. So proving a negative, that's tricky. Proving that something didn't happen. I don't have to go on about that. What I find interesting, though, is if you weren't raised with the concept that a God exists, would you have thought of it on your own? Maybe, maybe not. And I just think that that's an interesting sort of mental exercise to go through when trying to figure out where you land. But then some may argue, you're not proving a negative because to them it's so sure that you can't have been made out of nothing, that at least your soul and spirit, for a lack of a better term, isn't a production of hormones and chemicals, etc. And I love thinking about this. I'm deeply disturbed by how much our personality and intellect and emotion is controlled by chemicals and connections. A friend of ours was in a car crash many years ago. She was in her early 20s. She was dead on the scene. She was found by someone, rushed to the hospital, almost didn't make it through the night. She survived, had a traumatic brain injury, and was never the same. Some aspects of her sense of humor remained, which was jarring when her vivacious, fuck the man attitude about the world was dulled and just changed. But every now and then you'd hear her say something that she would have said before the crash. So it was like, she's still in there. But she lived in this condition for many, many years, and only a couple years ago finally died. And what I struggle with is which which her died when her body died? Was it the her before the crash? Or was it the her after? And who is she now? And isn't the person who she was for so many years after the crash just as valid as the person she was before? Just as her, just as who she was, as the person after the crash. And you could take it so many other directions about like, there's I think a radio lab on this. There's a bacteria that is carried, that wants to live in the bellies of cats. Toxoplasma, I think is the name. And it ultimately wants to live in the bellies of cats. But then when it gets pooped out, this bacteria wants to get back in the cat, so it gets eaten by mice, and it changes the brain of the mouse to be less afraid of cats, and so more likely to be eaten and back in the belly of the cat. And so they take this a step further, and you can test humans to see if they've been exposed to this, and many of us have. I'm sure I have. But it makes us, they suggest that it makes us more likely to love cats. And so when you think about your favorite crazy cat lady, or Emily, who is now you're a crazy cat lady. Crazy in the best way, of course. There's a video I took a while ago of Emily playing the piano, and she has wrapped our cat Whiskey in a scarf around her so he can be like her baby. And he's just lying there listening to her play some beautiful music. I think it was Debussy. Maybe he just likes Debussy. And she's a crazy cat lady. So the suggestion is that we are controlled, at least to some degree, by this and so many other hormones. And so when you're talking about God, we think about us first. We think about who we are and the fact that we have these souls, for lack of a better term. And how could that possibly be anything other than a creation of a higher power? But then I also like to suggest, I forget who originally suggested this, when it comes to intelligent design, what designer would put an amusement park next to a waste disposal plant? Referencing, of course, to our reproductive and pooping and peeing organs. That's a terrible design. Also, your breathing tube, right where your eating tube, your eating and breathing tubes together, that's a terrible idea. Why would you put those next to each other? Right there. That's not good design. That's not good design. But then again, here I am saying the words that are talking about good and bad design. It's complicated. But proving a negative, that's tough. So, yeah. And then there's also the argument of what's the hurt in believing in God? What if you're believing in the wrong one? Well, there's no way out is the bottom line. Have a good day. All right, well, it's salad dressing time, which means we're coming towards the end of It's Chopped Salad Time with Chion Wolf. I'm going to check in on you. I think someone else is talking. Peter Carpenter, did taxes, got a little less back, but it's hard to tell exactly because I switched jobs partway through the year for a higher salary. Congratulations. It didn't affect my gross between 17 and 18, but will this year. Congratulations, Peter. I'm so glad you're making more money. I hope we're all making more money soon. All of us. Okay, I've got a little leftover salad dressing from last week because I missed the salad. So I'll just fill it basically up by eyeball. You'll notice we've got some more balsamic vinegar. Last week, you saw that I ran out. And now we have more, and that's not a negative. Wow, that's what I call balsamic. Oh God, it's on my sock. Oh God, there's balsamic on my sock. Balsamic.
Hey.
Thank you, Mia. Balsamic on the floor. This is this kind of party. Balsamic on our cabinets. I tell you what, being a homeowner is a funny thing because now I'll spend like a couple minutes cleaning the front of my cabinets. Cleaning the front of my cabinets because they're my cabinets. I mean, they're our cabinets. but they're not someone else's cabinets. And it's exhilarating. I love clean cabinets. And a little more olive oil. And then we're going to add Chion Wolf onion salt. I tried to get Trader Joe's to be a sponsor of this show because at the end of every episode, I would prominently display Trader Joe's onion salt, which is really good. I still love them. But I just realized that they're not committing to me in the way I was committing to them. And so now I've made my very own Chion Wolf onion salt, made with our dehydrator that we got for $6.99 plus 30% off. Plus 30% off? 30%. We got it at Savers. It was a dehydrator, and so we dehydrated some onions, and then we added some salt, and now we've got Chion Wolf onion salt. I'm just going to add it to my oil and vinegar. It's very salty. That's how I like my dressing. All right, any last words? Judy Weatherby, believe how you want to believe. I'll believe how I want to believe, and I will support you in your belief as long as you support me in mine. We are all in one world. I am not offended. If you want to bless me, I am honored. You know what? I do bless you, Judy. I bless you. Mm-hmm. And amen, so to speak. Stephanie, let's see. My son says I saved others' lives by getting hit by the car by stopping the guy from plowing through the rest of West Hartford Center and taking out a crowd. What I went through was devastating for me and my family to witness. I truly thought seeing the car race at me was my last moment on earth. That was my last thought. But then I also thought, I'm not ready to die. The man had no remorse and was an angry person in life that shouldn't have been driving, had no idea he hit me and gave the police a hard time. Pretty sad way to go through life. Message to the world, if you have a senior family member that shouldn't be driving anymore, help them find another transportation method to keep themselves and others safe. Right on. Yeah, that's intense. And I can see how that could be, that could feel complicated. But I'm so glad that you're okay now, or at least that you're not worse off, and that maybe other people were spared. That's a hell of a way to go through things. Damn. Hold on tight. It's funny because, like I was saying, I don't believe in God, but one of my favorite sayings and one of my favorite sentiments is, there but by the grace of God go I. Which I know is a funny thing to say as somebody who doesn't believe in a God, but the idea that really there's no predicting a lot of what you're going to go through in terms of hardship and good ship, easy ship. But yeah, there's not much separating any of us from any of us. Blessed, magical souls, God or not. On that note, the moment you've all been waiting for in 3, 2, 1. Thanks for watching It's Chopped Salad Time with Chion Wolf. I'm Chion Wolf. You've been seeing me on Facebook at Chion Wolf Productions and on YouTube at youtube.com/Chion Wolf. Thanks for watching. I'll see you here around the same time next week for episode 41. Until next time, remember, I need a better tagline.